Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday, September 13th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Concord Personnel Board. And I'm going to call the meeting to order. And I think because we don't have all five of us, we just need to make certain that I do the roll call. So Liz?
Here.
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 Here. And Bill Morachek here. So we have a quorum. We're going to move to the, now it says, maybe Liz, you can help me, but the July 12th, 2023 corrected minutes. I thought we could actually approve those
With the corrections.
with the correction.
Yeah, and I think the corrections are in there, but there is another mistake. So let me pull that up so that
Okay.
we can, pulling up the wrong thing here. I had made that mistake earlier about the 17 versus 30. And then down in the minutes a bit further, it says Joe Emmerich approves the 30. And so it needs to go to 17. That's all.
Okay.
So I will correct that here and send it back to you.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll post it with the vote. You know,
So
you
we-
all need to vote on.
So we need to vote. All right. So
Do you see where that is, everyone? It's
Yeah.
decision on the decision
Yeah.
list.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the corrected minutes of July 12th, 2023.
So move.
Right, second? Second. Okay, so, all in favor?
I
Bill, and Bill. Okay. Now we're going to the August 9th, 2023 minutes.
I think unfortunately there needs a correction on those minutes as well. But let me see. This is the August 9, right?
Correct.
We did, yeah, we did something. I'm sorry, did anybody else have comments while I dig on mine? Got to them before I passed them on, but. No?
Do we want to move on and then we'll come back? Would that be helpful, or you want to find it?
Yeah, let's move on and come back.
So we'll come back to the August 9th, 2022 minutes, and we'll move on to Kimberly, your report.
If I could, I'd like to ask the board, Dave is with us tonight because he has the first of two job descriptions for the next segment.
Okay.
And so if you don't mind us taking his items first, then he's free to go and we can finish the rest of my report. In the compensation and classification study that was just implemented July 1st, Dave's group, the light plant, had an assistant director of the light plant that was approved at that time, one assistant director. What we're bringing before you tonight is we are elevating a second position in Dave's world using the same scoring mechanism that we used for the study. It is equivalent in score in the same band as the assistant, and it would have separate duties. So we brought before you back in July a position in the recreation group that was an identical job classification, same level, same scoring, same basic supervisory job. But we brought two different focuses, if you would, within that group. One was for programming, I believe, and one was for swim operations. We're doing the same thing here. So the same level job, assistant director, but we're making two assistant directors, one for engineering and operations and one for power supply and energy management. And so, if you have any questions about that, Dave's here and prepared to address them.
Dave, how many total employees are you now having? Roughly 43, roughly? 43.
Do you want to say a little bit about what this position does and why it's you're requesting that it be elevated?
Yeah. Well, we took the power supply position and we've added stuff to it. The energy management portion of the life plan is ever expanding. It's getting bigger and bigger. So, I mean, with that program, just to give you an example, we used to budget about $200,000 annually on energy efficiency programs. We're now up around 900,000 a year. And we have new programs coming up. So it just keeps growing. And it's one of my direct reports that division is. And so pushing that over to an assistant director is going to free up my time to work on other things. It's also going to have the power supply in there still. And the idea long term would be to go out and get a junior power supply analyst that would report to this position. To handle more of some of the day-to-day stuff in power supply, and leaving the larger items in this position that would report to me. Then we come up to Karen and go through the details. And to give you a perspective, our power supply budget's over $30 million a year, so it's a pretty important part of the money. It's our highest. It's about 8% of our cost.
And you've been busy in the last week or so.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your team's running around. Much appreciated. I thought of you a lot in the last week when our power was out for, it was out for a while, but it came back on and we had all faith it would. So thank you.
Appreciate it. It was a tough go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's really the summary of it. I think Kimberly did a good job kind of outlining it. But this has been needed for a little while now. Kelly and I have been talking about this for a while.
Now, if you start to fill this position, what are your plans?
We have an internal candidate that meets all the requirements and is doing a lot of this stuff already. That's our power supply and rates administrator. And then, like I said, we have to create the junior position, which is kind of step B of this process for us. We also have to find a place to house that person. So, we're at capacity at the lake. So that's the game plan.
This is a real opportunity for career advancement for an internal candidate, which is helpful as well. So we want our people who've been with us a long time, they're significant contributors, to have a career path where they can grow within their role.
So the second position is also at the LP 15. And that position is already filled. This is an update of the job description. Okay.
It's actually because we never brought the job description
To
you for July. So we
okay.
just are bringing it to you now at the same time as the new one.
That's the engineering operations.
And this one is filled and yeah.
It's filled, yeah.
All right, any other comments or questions? There's really no, we don't have to vote on anything.
I think you're going to vote on all of these.
All of these.
Yeah,
at once.
I think we did them in a package last time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Dave, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for dropping by.
Not a problem.
We'll let you go home.
All right, thanks.
And thank you for our lights. I'm very happy.
We're keeping an eye out for this weekend. So
Yeah. So many trees down, so many.
Oh,
We actually had fun because we had enough candles, so we had 12 hours or so, which is a long one, I
That's a
think,
long
for the
time,
town, because you guys were working so fast and everybody.
we were fortunate we were in the hardest hit area and I got the most attention in the beginning because that brought power that run to like 7 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm off Lowell.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's so many trees and marshy area, right? So that must have, the trees came down very.
Yeah, we had a tree stand up road. It was
Yeah. So your second person is the one who's out there jumping around in the operation of, you know, getting it done,
so-
right?
So our second,
Engineering operation.
engineering operations supervises engineering operations, does field work, is responsible for our safety, and substation switching is, you know, it's a big part of the operation.
You know, I did have one other question. Do you mind? I know you talked of, it's just an academic question really, but, you know, in terms of equity in workplace, you've got one person who has to be there and on and under trees and all of this stuff. And you have one person that with this job is more a desk job. Is that right?
Yeah.
And are you expecting everybody to work in person, or how do you manage those differences?
Well, we do try to have the employees in the office, if that's what you're getting at, as much as possible. We do have some, partial remote, not full-time remote. So the power supply, and energy management position can do more remote than, you know, but they're both reporting to the office.
I think that another important thing to point out is that the new assistant director is the one who would work with the boards and committees that are attached to
Okay.
the light plan, so regularly working with the light board. And we have a new solar task force, and that person is a key player there. So while that person is not on call, there are regular responsibilities that are outside. And actually another thing, the other assistant director actually receives a stipend for being on call as well, so there's some additional compensation. At those.
That's good.
I'm good for a few things.
It's a real team. I mean, really, everybody working together, and this is a good example. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly will let you.
Yeah, if we
back.
want to just, in keeping with the job descriptions, we can just kind of roll through those. The next one is the assistant town manager. And this is a position that was approved in the classification and compensation study. And so we just have this before you because we have begun recruitment for it. And so we're bringing, you know, each of the job descriptions before you for approval as time permits. So the assistant town manager is going to oversee human resources on a day-to-day basis, as well as human services. So the Council on Aging across the way here, recreation, veterans, and community services. And then the next one is the Director of Human Resources. Excited to tell you that we have begun recruitment on that as well. And there are no significant changes to that job description. The next one is Recreation Director, kind of in the same package, if you will. The one following Recreation Director, I do have a correction on it, is the town engineer. And for some reason, we have that it reports to itself, the town engineer. That should be reporting to the Director of Public Works. And so we'll make that correction. As part of a grant, we were asked to provide our job descriptions for all of our engineering positions, including their support, their clerical support. And so I have those in your packet tonight because we provided them, we updated them and provided them for the grant. The next one is the assistant town engineer. The administrative specialist for public works engineering. The crew leader for water and sewer division, which I believe we're recruiting for right now. The senior administrative specialist for the town clerk's office is under recruitment, as is the one for planning. And this was a new classification that was part of the study. And so that concludes the job descriptions that are before you tonight.
So a couple of very nitpicky things. I too looked at the reports to the town engineer. It you already got that one. On the recreation director, this is so minor, but plans, directs, comma, and coordinates. I guess commas are everywhere these days, so I don't know if you want to add that in right under the first bullet, essential job functions. And that's a silly one. That's more silly than the next one. And this one is, as a director of human resources, it says participates as a member. This is the third bullet under essential job functions. Participates as a member of the town senior management team. And I was wondering if that would allow for flexibility to appoint. Does it mean that it has to report to the town manager directly?
It does
Or
not.
it doesn't? Okay.
No.
Right.
I think, and Carrie can speak to this more directly than me, but I think the goal was to make sure that the human resources position remains a member of the senior management team. But Bill and I were talking a little bit earlier that the we have a number of transactional items, and Kate, you know, this would be no surprise to you or Joe, but a lot of transactional items, and I don't know what the number would be, somewhere between 50 and maybe 100 a week that you authorize. And Carrie is authorizing every one of those right now.
Yeah.
And so the day, what we're talking about when we say the day-to-day operations, you know, she really needs an assistant town manager managing that throughput, while and interacting in these key areas with our union relationships and so forth, and giving direction. I think the assistant town manager may act as the bargaining agent at the town manager's direction. So there are a number of things that the assistant town manager can do on a day-to-day basis and at a senior basis as well.
So
Is that common in government to have the HR report into an assistant town manager, or just unique?
So it's, I think it's common in municipalities for the assistant town manager to be the HR manager. In Concord, just before I started, so maybe 8 years ago, the former deputy town manager, this was the setup that we had. We had a deputy town manager who oversaw a human resources director. It was a direct report, and the human services division. So we have that history here ourselves, and went in a different direction, and now we're going back to.
So it just the way it reads, it says participates as a member of the senior management team to assist the town manager in designing, developing, and disseminating. Maybe it could say to assist the team in designing and developing. So otherwise it's skip the boss and go right to the town manager. That's the impression I had from reading this, but you know, just pointing it out that director of human resources may well not, right? If they report to the assistant town manager, you might want to be more clear that they're not assisting directly the town manager. But I understand that what the examples you use, that right now, Carrie, you're doing all the sign-offs, and maybe the assistant town manager would do that. I just got the wrong impression from reading that sentence.
So your recommendation is to replace town manager
With
with
the senior team, or to assist the assistant town manager in design. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong, aren't I? No, I'm on the
No, I
director.
think
You're on the
that's
resource.
That's not a bad suggestion, right? Because I'm thinking as an HR person, and one of the things you guys are recruiting for this fall to get good talent, I think they're gonna want, whether they report directly into you, Kevin, or not, if you have this conversation, they're gonna want to report into the top position. And I think how you structure that, will affect who you actually get into the role eventually. And their counsel is really the entire leadership team. So in my opinion, I mean, they report into someone, but they're really advising all of their senior management group.
So your recommendation would be to stay with not assistant town manager, but stay with the senior management team.
I would agree with Liz on that.
So- Yeah, and that second part. Yep.
All right.
Just as
Your
a
opinion?
tag on to, the point. I think it really, you can't overemphasize the need to be clear as to the lines of responsibility and authority. It can't, it needs to be clear.
Yeah.
Is the point. And if it's fuzzy and if it's confusing, whatever, there will be issues that you're going to be faced with that you don't want to have to deal with, because people are people. And this is one of those areas, that Joe has already indicated, that the individuals who you may be interviewing and talking to, this is an important point, to make certain that you have your ducks in order, and whatever documentation you're going to provide or need it has to be clear.
So the next one actually maintains and implements. That's the same issue. It says, and collective bargaining language for the town manager and the personnel board. So is that making it muddy in the way that Bill described? It's just saying town manager there, or is assistant town manager? So if this were to come through and you had everybody in position, you may not have to sit with us anymore, right? It would be the assistant town manager that might do it. And so therefore you might want to put bargaining language to the assistant town manager in that role, or no?
I don't know, the final decision maker is always gonna be the town manager. And so I think that was the thinking behind
Yeah.
the draft you see in front of you. It doesn't mean it was right, it's just the thinking behind it.
Yeah.
And so even though you're reporting to the assistant, everything you're developing is on behalf of the town manager. And for their benefit.
The intent really is for the assistant in this role to facilitate, to coordinate, to be somebody that has a certain level of expertise in human resources, which is not my area, to make sure things are moving and the right things are elevated to me versus in the past, where sort of everything was elevated. And as the appointing authority, as Kimberly said, there literally are 50 to 100 sounds low. There literally are just endless transactions. I mean, if we hired you as a lifeguard, guess who's signing off on it, right? I mean, it's too much. It slows things down. We already have plenty of things that slow things down in the process. It doesn't need to be, nothing needs to be slowed down because it's sitting in my inbox. So
Listen, I think we have the same goal.
Yeah.
Right? To help you, just making
Right.
sure that the language is gonna get you there, that's all.
yeah,
So,
The logic is
So-
sound. I mean, it makes total sense why you're doing it.
yeah,
And maybe you'll find someone. I would just caution that I think, and maybe different, like in service of government and municipalities. But if there's a prestige of reporting into a top person, you're just have to. So I think really what I'm hearing is more approvals and some day-to-day things like that versus the real strategy and leadership. So just, yeah, as Joe mentioned, I think clarity to candidates would be important. You certainly need something that wants to.
I think another aspect of this, I don't want to spend more time than necessary, but is the performance review. To what extent is the assistant town manager going to be player party to the HR director's performance? Because that answering that question, in my mind, helps to point out the need for clarity.
Yes. And
And if it's the expectation that you have of the assistant town manager to be a party to this, well, that sort of suggests that there is a fair amount of authority now given to the assistant town manager, because the assistant town manager is in the review process. Anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but I just.
well, down further, it says assist the town manager's office. And I thought, oh, that's a good way around that, right? Because it's a little bit broader, because of course, in the end, the responsibility sits with you. But they're helping your office, and the office includes their direct manager. So, sorry, Kate. you
No,
had some-
no, it's okay. I actually had a question about the assistant town manager. I know that we have a deputy town manager as well, and I'm just sort of, I was curious what the distinction between the two positions, and so I was wondering more procurement, those types of issues, and then assistant HR and personnel.
I think, you know, if the timing was different, it would have been wonderful to just go with 2 assistant town manager positions, but it didn't work out that way. The scope of the deputy town manager's position is broader. It crosses multiple departments and disciplines. And the deputy would be involved in more townwide projects, again, crossing multiple departments. The deputy is the second in lines of a person who would be taking over in the absence of the town manager. There's just one grade difference, so it's not significant, but the deputy would be managing and supervising individual contributors all the way up to some pretty senior division managers, and more in a supervisory role versus this other position, which I see more as coordinating and facilitating and so a little third in line, because there are times when both of us are out, but probably not working more internally on the organization, professional development, the performance reviews, risk management, those types of things.
On the organization chart, you probably have to find out even a draft, but how is that gonna look in regards to deputy versus assistant town manager? Are they gonna be on the same line?
Yes, they're both, but they are part of the senior management team, so they're on the same line with all of
Everybody
the
else?
departments.
Oh, any other comments, questions?
I have one more question, and this is for the assistant town manager, director of HR, is it an actual requirement to have a master's degree? Would that happen somehow?
I think it's usually preferred, but it usually reads equivalent in training.
Learning outcomes.
So
So would that mean it changes to that, or it stays as it is?
I think it stays as it is.
Yeah, okay.
So just, that's a very good point. Okay. So a master's degree is required. Number one. Number two, 7
It
years.
says or any equivalent combination of education and experience. So typically what that means is if you don't have a master's degree, but you have a bachelor's degree, you substitute a certain number of years for that extra 2-year degree. Some places it's equal 2 years for 2, but most times it's 4 years for 2. So you'd have to have 11 years of experience without a master's. Is that pretty?
Yeah.
Equivalent.
And that's the assistant that you're referring to, a role.
I think it's both. I was looking at the HR director, but I believe it's the same for both. It's pretty standard.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
my only thing on that is a nitpick, but I'm assuming you guys are consistent. As long as you know what any equivalent combination of education and experience is. I'm just thinking from a compliance perspective, we're not ruling out people that don't have a master's degree right out of the gate.
Right.
That you're strange for that stuff. So, I'm wondering.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay, so we're ready to entertain a
A motion.
motion to accept these positions as having been reviewed and
Could we clarify the number of positions so I don't get that wrong again?
I think it's 4, right? So 2 engineering ones. And then
Oh, wait, no, there are more coming that we haven't discussed. Or you
No, I
listed them, but we didn't get into discussion
Oh,
about.
right.
There are, now there's one more coming, but there's 11 in this pack.
Okay. But that's next month, or do
No,
you need
it's-
us to do it ad hoc? Oh, okay.
We've
Okay,
got, we've got one more before you tonight. That is the veterans agent. And this is on the miscellaneous schedule, so it would have not have been part of the compensation classification study. But Carrie asked me to look at this job in particular because of some information that was coming our way based on market conditions and the maximum pay of the pay grade here. And so I did a bit of a study, and frankly, veterans agents here, ours is a part-time person. That's why it's under 20 hours. That's why it's on the miscellaneous schedule. In a number of our neighboring towns, this is a shared position. And as an example, Kate shares hers with 4 other, if I recall correctly, 4 other municipalities. And so the pay ranges can vary dependent on whether it's a part-time position, a full-time shared position, et cetera. So that the numbers were a little all over the map. So what I did was I went to the JAQ and we completed a JAQ for this position as if it were a full-time position. And it landed very squarely in a pay grade 3 job range. And so what you see before you tonight is a maximum pay rate that is equivalent or close to, because these are always ending in zeros, it's the rounded number down for the pay grade 3. So we're recommending to you tonight that we increase the minimum to $20 and the maximum to $39 for this position, commensurate with the pay grade 3 in the full-time job. And then we have the job description before you, just so you know what the job entails.
Yeah, but
This is a really critical position here. We have a number of veterans within the town of Concord, and we have someone who is a former police officer who's serving in this role, very diligent in keeping up with our veterans and making sure they're well supported. So we want to acknowledge that the pay range has moved, around us, and we want to acknowledge that here.
okay, thank you.
And that's all of the job description for tonight.
So we probably would need a separate motion for the veterans agent.
For the miscellaneous schedule.
Miscellaneous schedule. So why don't we go tackle the first part, which is we have a count.
The 11.
11, okay.
Make a motion
11.
to approve the 11 job descriptions as discussed.
Second.
Second.
So all those in favor, Liz Collins?
I'm in favor.
Aye.
Bell Rogers, aye. Now we're gonna do the veterans agent. Approval of the job description as well as these compensation. Miscellaneous compensation schedule that has been signed for this job.
I move to approve
All right,
the veterans agent job description and salary grades and miscellaneous compensation schedule as noted in our packet.
Second,
all in favor? Liz Collins?
Yes.
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 Bill Rogers, yes. Very good.
Then if we could revert back to my items before you tonight. I don't know that you want to see this every month, but when I had shared with you last month hires and terminations, and for the regular full-time and regular part-time employees, this doesn't change a lot month to month, so it might be better off being a quarterly report. But I am showing tonight the number of hires thus far for the year that are covered by the board are 29. And then the number of terminations thus far for the year are 32. And then the second thing, in our last discussion, I believe I had made mention of the exit interview, and you all asked if you could see a copy of it. And so I provided a copy of a blank exit interview form for you. You may have some suggestions for us on that, or some review and comment.
So I see it's electronic. Is that-
It has been.
Yeah.
What we've decided to do since my arrival is I've been sitting down with employees and going over it with them.
I was gonna ask what the participation rate is. I'm guessing if it's electronic, it's lower.
It
because
was-
That's been my experience.
But you've been sitting down with individuals and did you get to most of them then or?
Most of them, not all of them. And frankly, I have a little bit of work to do on my feedback mechanism. Frankly, our employees who are leaving us have been very happy here. You know, they tend to be leaving us for other reasons. And so they've been delightful conversations. And looking forward to having a little bit better feedback loop with the leadership team regarding what we're learning in those conversations and aggregating that data, so that, you know, I don't ever want to sit down with people and have conversations and then be worried about their name in lights, you know. Thus far, the conversations have been very positive, but I want to make sure that their anonymity is somewhat preserved.
The comment, Kimberly, about the, I'm using the summary, that is a summary of the dialogue between you. So you are contemplating doing something that's a little bit more formal with this feedback, or did you help me understand what
Yeah,
you're?
I think, you know, having one-on-one conversations and sharing one-on-one conversations is good and can be very productive, particularly if there are areas of opportunity and that type of thing. And it's good to hear that people have been very happy working here as well. But I think over time, I'd like for us to have some type of aggregated data that we can look at for quarter at a time or a year at a time that tells us, you know, a summary of what the trend is among our employees for each of these answers. Like, to what degree, you know, what is the reason for their leaving? You know, we're seeing some that are family pressures, frankly. You know, the jobs that we have here require a lot of us. And we have people who are leaving us to do part-time work, people that are leaving us to spend more time with family, et cetera. And so it's those types of trends that I think over time are going to be important for us to know as a leadership team and potentially as a board.
So initial reactions for whatever it's worth, it's kind of lengthy. And I'm not picking on anyone, but I think when you're doing an interview, I try to focus on other key things. Question number 4 is the need when there's ultimately people make a decision on why. So I'm assuming they could select one or all of these things if they all played into their decision. But I noticed what you just kind of mentioned, family situation or work-life balance, whatever that is. This would be the Pareto to me, like where are the most common answers coming out of this over time? And that might help the town dig into the real reasons why people are leaving, whether it's controllable or not. The other stuff is useful information. You just assess that over time. See, is it actionable and what you do with it?
Yeah.
It might, okay,
No, I was actually gonna say something similar. Some of these almost, you know, your opinion of your direct supervisor, let me know what was expected of, you, those types of things almost feel like they should be part of an evaluation process or and a 360, which I know that you don't necessarily do, but I guess the other question I was curious about is when, so we've had some very long term employees retire or move on. And one of the things we've been struggling with, and I think this is probably true of any organization, is institutional knowledge and sort of how we transfer that. And I'm wondering if like department heads are involved and do they sit down with exiting employees as well, or is it just HR and how you incorporate that?
Then maybe a different answer from
Yeah.
place to place, but I can share with you, I'm very comfortable saying that when I have met with employees doing their exit interview, they have met with their supervisors. Yeah. I think our department heads, you know, it's a small enough town that I think our department heads are very well aware when someone's leaving, and they have a pretty good finger on that pulse. I don't know if you want to add.
I think what I would add is, because the exit interviews that I've said tend to be the employees that are retiring. So I have a pretty good window into this, and a number of them have been in public works. So we've got, and we have a couple of additional ones coming. And I know from meeting with the department manager and then meeting with the employee, there's definitely a long, ongoing conversation where people are being very upfront about what their plans are and giving the department the opportunity to train up somebody to take over. That's been really, really, really nice. Because we've had probably in the last 4 months or so, have lost 100 years worth of experience combined with, some public works. It's hard work, and each of the employees I have talked to, I think, are really struggling with their decision to retire, but they don't want the winter work, the plowing, the working 30 hours straight. They don't want to do that. If they could not do that, they would stay. And interestingly enough, a number of them have been picked up by the police department and they do traffic details. So it's the work is just physically demanding. But so they've been very open about their process, and it's been helpful because there's an opportunity to train for others in the department to train or get additional licenses or whatever they might need to take.
I'd be interested in just hearing from the personnel board members, is spending time on looking at this exit interview form and actually coming up with some concrete suggestions. Is that a value of your time, of the board, of personal board time, that you think is meaningful and beneficial, or not? Because I think there's so many, in my mind, there's so many subjects, so many areas that we as a person could be involved with.
So
But
one,
we specifically ask, and Kimberly provided.
Yeah.
So I think
the way I look at it, Phil, is that it's a subset of something really important that we're trying to do, which is to help with retention and new hires and understand what's happening.
Right.
And so I think having this conversation, I think, Joe, your comments where you said, and these questions might be good to follow over time, and that's where you get the data from.
Mhm.
That's helpful in my view. And then, but it's a subset, right? It's a subset of how are we doing with retention and hiring and retention? And that is a question I think we need to kind of focus our support for the management of the town.
And I think you've answered that question, which is, I agree, it's a subset. So hearing that word subset, talking about the other larger recruiting retention, seems like that we would be better off more focusing on the higher level as opposed to this, which is a tactic. But I don't know how you feel about it, so that's why I'm asking.
I mean, I think the town can figure out what they want to ask people in an exit interview. I'm just throwing out my opinion on that and experience with it. I think for me, where it's like we all should have a collaborative conversation is when we have the data. If you have too much data, then you got to weed through all to find out what it's saying. So I second the data. I mean, honestly, if you just ask question number 4 and you at least know why people are leaving, you can start with that, and then you'll know what are your top 3 reasons, and we can talk through those and say, does that make sense? What are the themes behind those? And unpack that a bit and see if there's anything we can do differently. Just listen. It sounds like the jobs are tough, grinding jobs, or the hours are long. So there's things we can talk about, options of how do you solve that. Because that's really what's driving people to leave. So I think you guys can figure out what the right questions are.
Good.
No, I agree. I was gonna say the same thing, I think higher level conversations about recruitment and retention. Just like where we could lend on. That's what
Is this high or low turnover? I don't have a thing. So I see 25 people every time. You fire 20. Is that good or bad? You know what I mean?
Well,
Like, is that a lot of people leaving in a year, or is that like standard turnover?
when we looked we're already, at this point, 7 months through the year, right? I was gonna say 8, but we're only through July on paper. And so if we looked at, just doing a quick back of the envelope, I think if we looked at past years, we said we were in the 10 to 12% range. Yeah, and this might be a little bit beyond that. Yeah, a little bit higher this year. And we have had a number of retirements, of longstanding employees as well.
It feels like a lot, but I think it might be the people that are going, you know, I was just thinking, I said 100 years in public works, it's way more than that, because we have three go with 40 years, so I don't know what I was thinking, so it feels like we've had retirements of pretty senior people all across the organization.
And that really goes to the memory, corporate,
Yeah.
or the department memory that you lose feels like it's much more pressing because not be a lot of bench to make up for that. So running a town, you have to figure out, you know, what resources do you have and what can you use? So it's a big job. Okay,
That concludes my report.
all right, thank you. It really is, as usual, you've offered a really fantastic insight and continues to be a very impressive. Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to discussion of, oh, sure.
I'm sorry, we didn't go back to the August 9th.
I couldn't find
minutes.
any
Should we wait for
criticism.
that?
No, let's go ahead. I mean, if you guys are okay with it, and I can't find what I was gonna nitpick about, let's move on if that's, you know. if
So
you
we
guys are-
need to approve the August,
Yeah.
the August
August
9th is done.
Minutes, yeah.
Are you guys okay with
I
this?
believe I was absent, so I probably didn't have to say.
Well, I was absent too, so.
Were you?
Wasn't
Oh,
it?
yeah, no, right, because I
Yeah.
said, yay, and
Yeah, it was just me and you.
Pamela.
No, it actually does say Bill was, says Bill Pamela was.
Yeah.
and me.
Was I,
Where
that's
is
maybe
there? 'Cause that
August
was-
9th?
Yeah, that was the one I came to. remotely.
We were on,
So,
yeah,
I was really late.
you were there, Bill.
Yeah.
It's not a
Good.
mistake.
I worked it for us. Okay, so we do though need to approve the August 9th minutes.
Do you know what I'm thinking? Kimberly, didn't you catch a few things and I corrected them before
sent
we
them,
sent them out?
yeah.
That's what was
That's
staying in
why
my
you
head.
can't find it, is
That's
yeah,
why.
because
You're
you're correct.
perfect now. Okay, I'm good. All right, so I'm not, since I typed them up, somebody else.
I moved to approve the minutes from August 9th, 2023.
All right, thank you. And second,
I second.
and all in favor. I mean, it's really.
The three of us.
Three of us, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's Joey.
okay,
I,
nine
uh,
minutes or so approved. Okay, so we're now on to,
So just highlight that it looks as if Mark has
Mark is
joined
here.
us.
to go on to. Yes, hi, Mark. We're gonna move on to the discussion of the personnel bylaw.
So if I could start, I just want to say, that, I know that Pamela and I were gonna work on this together. My last couple of weeks in August just turned into, I just didn't have the capacity to do it, unfortunately, and I'm sorry about that. She took a first, stab at it, and I honestly haven't had a chance to sort of sit down and review it. I'm not entirely sure if, this copy shows almost redactions rather than edit, so I'm not sure where we're at with this. And I know she's on vacation for a while.
2 months, September and October. She's coming through though.
So I'm not really
Okay.
sure where to go from there, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm happy to, I think things are starting to slow down a bit, so I can focus some of my time on it now, and then hopefully bring it back next month, but I just. Life intervenes,
Yes.
so.
whatever you can do is fine.
Well, with Pamela out, she's not available to meet with you even, and, the idea was that as a lawyer, she might be able to bring a certain expertise, but with Joe, maybe you two could work on it a little bit, because what I'm worried about is that if we have to confirm the bylaw and get it in the town meeting, that's the first 2 days in December.
Yep.
And I didn't want you, then it surely will get busy again, and, so is there a chance, Joe, that you could help Kate on the bylaw?
I
Yeah.
think it would be helpful if we had a Word document version. I think this is a
Okay.
PDF, and maybe that's why it didn't come through.
Yeah,
it's
this
not-
is what, I know.
I know this is just, and I think maybe it just didn't translate properly, but that would be helpful, because it's how I would work on it.
So you're asking me to
Sort
send,
of a track changes version in
Yeah.
Word would be the easiest way. I mean, my goal was honestly just to mirror, so we had mapped out the charge. I mean, I know it's not finished,
Yeah.
but really just to kind of make sure our bylaw is in line with our charge. That was really where I was. I think Pamela and I were gonna work on.
And I think there were some, because what I read in, that I'm retaining right now, what Pamela sent was not too much to change. I don't think we should go too deeply, but then that was kind of the opposite of what we were all talking about. So
Yeah,
that was
I
one,
agree.
and then the other around, vacations and that sort of thing, like what, could we make that more general, so it's easier, it doesn't have to go every year back
Right.
to town meeting, that was on my mind, but. Yeah, so it sounds like you're on top of that, Kate.
Yeah.
Well, I want to jump in just to frame what I think we should be focusing on. And that is, and I looked at the personnel study task force and their recommendations, and read through several of them. But it seemed to me that my idea is that we try to move as many of the items that are mentioned in the bylaw, namely the lead. Move that, and I'm not sure how to do that, by the way, but move that into the PPPs. So that it's not even, it's not there in the personnel bylaw.
What is the third piece for?
Personnel policies.
Procedures, okay.
These are the,
Sorry. Just want to get it right here.
and that's a recommendation that actually came from the personnel study task force as well. The idea is there certainly should be, the town manager and whoever else should have authority to be able to make these kind of changes that doesn't require going to the town. So if we were to take a look at that particular piece, how do we move those? Then what's the next step? And the next step, I think, is again based on the personnel study task forces. There should be an employee handbook. There should be a way for employees and citizens of the town to be able to see what are the lead policies, which then means that the work that would need to be done, assuming that we are trying to get the employee handbook timing wise to try to mirror the the refreshed or renewed personnel bylaw. I mean, so there's work there. I mean, so the work that needs to be done is still there.
Yeah.
But conceptually, I think we should be focusing on how do we move these two PPPs.
No, I agree. I think we talked about this last time we met, and I'm not sure that we have to remove those sections completely, but I think the language should be very, basically should just point to the PPPs as outlined in policy, the PPP number.
Which may be changed from
Right.
time to time. I think we
Exactly.
talked about
Yeah,
doing something like that.
So I think if they can stay, we just need to be less specific in the bylaw so that we can modify the policy procedure when needed.
And we may need labor council to try to, focus us and so forth. But I think this is also the opportunity to, what are the respective roles of the town manager, the personnel board? This again comes from the personnel study task force. We have had conversations in the past about the approval that's needed when there's a new position for classification and comp purposes. Now, the way it works is that we have to, it goes through the town manager, HR director, to the personnel board for approval, and then on to the next town meeting. But I don't see there's a real reason for that particular process.
Which part? All of it?
Yeah, if there's a new, and again, this, I'm part of this is coming from the personnel study task force, as I read it, is that we should have the town manager have authority for establishing what is the classification, and what is the compensation structure for a new position. And that is, if we remember, I remember the conversation we've had years ago about the personnel board was just a rubber stamp. And that's where this comes from, because we do not have the expertise on the personnel board to know how to evaluate what, the GovHR's matrix and the 11 or 12 different factors. I mean, we don't have that training. And I think we have to rely upon the personnel department or HR department, along with the diligence of the town, sort of say, yeah, this is what we should be doing. And that should not, in my opinion, have to go to town meeting.
So any
I don't-
new, just, I want to be clear so I understand what then would be off the personnel board table, and also what procedure would then be in place. So if we did as you just described, if I'm understanding what you're saying, that means that the CNC plan next time is handled only by the town manager's office.
No.
And we don't,
No, I didn't,
No.
if you heard that, that's not mine. I'm talking about a new position that comes up needing to be, filled. So, and you need to have classification for that position, and you need to have an identification of where that falls in the existing compensation structure.
Yeah.
I'm saying,
and that piece should
That piece-
should not come to the personnel board or town meeting.
well, we may, as a personnel board, want to have some mechanism in place as a point of transparency. But in terms of approval, the rubber stamp philosophy, I don't think we need to do that because we don't offer anything. But
So just for an example, so the last 3 meetings, we spent a lot of time with Kimberly updating the job descriptions and reviewing the job descriptions. And it's true, we haven't had a lot of discussion about the level that those job descriptions came in on, right? We haven't said, wait a minute, did they have this number of qualifications to get to that level of this? We're not doing that. So it fits with what you're saying, that job would be gone too, right?
it would,
Overseeing,
it would not have to go to town meeting for approval.
So all of these job descriptions go to town meeting now. They go to us as an interim approval and then they go back to town meeting?
I think we're kind of in a unique situation here because the compensation and classification study went to town meeting.
Right,
And they've approved each of these jobs as the pay grade
Yeah.
that GovHR recommended, and you all approved.
right.
So it's kind of already been done, and that's why we've had this conversation. Do we really need to bring these to you? And I'm doing it out of respect. I want to make sure we've covered all our bases. But I hear you all asking, we're looking at these each and every time. We've got 139 of them, I think, that you're going to end up overseeing and approving. But the job's kind of already done because you've already approved the study on which each of these was built.
Well, it does go back, I think, to the fact as to if we're going to make modifications to the personal bylaw, what does that mean in context of what we're just talking about right now? I don't have an answer, but I think it's important for the personnel board to conceptually agree as to what the philosophy is and what the thinking is. Because if it's not consistent, then obviously we need to rethink a lot of things, probably.
So
But I'm
right,
trying
so
to,
just brainstorming, then the class and comp comes up every 8 to 10 years. Maybe this one was a little longer, but COVID, etc. So the class and comp is something that we would weigh in on.
yes,
And we would, so you remember that we had a meeting where they said, here are the qualifications by which we are looking at things. These are the reasons we're taking these particular communities as equivalent communities, et cetera. And we had that dialogue.
Right.
So that role would remain. But then once that class and comp is agreed to, it's moved forward, they're now implementing on it, then our job is done.
well, define what you mean our job is done.
Well, we wouldn't have to look at job descriptions, right? Because those are already fitted in. Now that we've seen a couple that are new roles, but you're fitting them in. And so then those are kind of, in my mind, a separate category
They are.
where you're saying they didn't go to town meeting.
Right.
So we're bringing them to you. And those, if I understand correctly, have to go to town meeting at the end of the year. And we say, we approved it in place to give it a timely placement so you could hire.
Right.
The town meeting actually has to say, yes, we agree it fits within the parameters of the CNC plan that we agreed to as town meeting a year ago, in this case. Right, so our job would be really different in that way. And I'm just trying, I don't even have an opinion. I'm just trying to clarify, like, what does that change mean?
Right. Different than we have to articulate. We have to write down what it means.
Yeah. And then does that put any further burden on the HR department or the town manager's office that we aren't doing something? Is it somehow, is there another check, or the check goes away, or I don't know what that does, because somehow you take this away and go, oh, that was great, we saved a lot of time, and then you realize, oh, it's raining over here, so I don't know. I don't know if that's happening.
Well,
if we do that.
So in my mind, certainly,
Yeah.
Joe and Kate, jump in, is that I think we can eliminate what happens. I think procedurally, the process is that a new position comes in, there's communication, make certain the finance, there's financial viability and all of the payroll and so forth. But the determination, as it's been in the past, the HR organization, with the support and approval of the town manager, has said, this is the job and this is the level we want to recommend to you. And there's never been a time in which the personnel board said, sorry, I don't think it's 13, I think it should be 27. I mean,
Right,
it's just,
on the leveling, we haven't had any, we're not pushing that,
there's been no that, and there's also been no, well, the leveling includes both the position, level plus what is the compensation structure. Where does it fall in compensation? So that part of the process is gonna remain. We have to, on the personnel board, decide what visibility or what reporting, what transparency, what is it a report? Is it a report every month that these are the changes that have come in and taken place, and this is what we've done?
Instead of decision.
Yes, right.
So I was thinking about the new position versus existing job descriptions and I mean, I would love to be at a place where the personnel board doesn't slow down any kind of hiring process. So the town manager or department head, et cetera, identifies an urgent need for a new position. Through COVID, I'm sure there were a lot of urgent needs. And I know that there's a way you can sort of create a new position and then it has to go to town meeting next year in the middle of a cycle. But if what's standing in the way of, you have your job description, you've done your benchmarking, your salary, so you know how to recruit and who to recruit. If what's standing in the way is it now has to go to the personnel board just for us to say yes, I don't know that that's adding
But I don't
much
think
to
that
that
has
process.
actually happened, because you guys are actually posting a draft. And you're
Well,
allowed to do that
I know,
now
but I'm
before
just
it
saying,
comes to us.
I don't know that we need to be involved in approving it, especially when you have this matrix from GovHR that you can take the JQA, JAQ, I got it, and map out where it falls within the compensation. So I think I personally believe that where we can be of most assistance or provide, whatever we can provide is as more in an advisory capacity. So our compensation classification plan, that's all sort of mapped out through the budget process anyway. You have to ensure that you have the funding there, and then all of that kind of falls into place. So it's gone through several levels of steps or checks and balances through FinCom and select board and town manager. But by the time it gets to us, I'm not sure what value we add at that point for approving a new position, as long as the town manager and senior management team are all on board with hiring that new person. So I agree with you on that.
I agree that from an approval perspective, I don't know, right? So I don't know if we know what the grading is, you guys got the job. Reflecting on the conversation we just had today on a couple of those jobs, I do think there's value in if we can have a conversation about, the best way to recruit, or just bounce ideas off each other and what we think we might see in the market, or try to troubleshoot so we can get the roles filled. I think that's worthy, attracting new people in, like we had with the HR role where they have reports. The town's assistant, right? I mean, they know the financials, so I agree with you guys. We can approve it, but I don't feel like there's anything that we wouldn't have. The town said, that this is the role that we need, and it's financially it's in the budget. So, okay, cool. But then I do think there are things that we can talk about to make sure that we get the right person in that role, or think about how to fill it the best way possible. Right. That would be a great conversation.
Yeah.
So, Liz, you're the only one who has it. I want to make certain that you've got
So
something
what
to
I'm
say.
writing, and I think sounds reasonable, is this idea of we are informed. We are not a decision body on these roles that fit in, right? I mean, I think the job descriptions is only one example, right? Because you have somebody retires, you have to fill the role. You may not be changing the job description, but in the way it's set up now with our bylaw, it may be that you have to come to us again. And what you're saying in those cases is it's inform you all, which would prompt discussion, right? So, and that's what you're saying, is that if we have a chance to look things over, if it's periodically, then, within, I don't know if you want to stipulate in the bylaw quarterly or something like that. So it's not, but since it's not informed, it's not slowing you down from hiring, but it's only summarized. See, the thing that I'm worried about with this summarize, like if we did a quarterly inform us of many decisions that you've already taken, the discussion's redundant, because it's already done. Right? So how close do we have to be to have that discussion, actually help you? If it's, oh, shoot, we should have done that, but we already did whatever we're gonna do, then that's not getting to what your point is, Joe. Right?
No, I don't, yeah, it's more, like, it's nice to know we have these 11 or 12 or more jobs open. But like, which of those are gonna be hard to sell, or why are they open?
Yeah.
Is it a goal of continuing to turn over and we just can't keep something? Or is it a new position that's added, and what's the reason, just so we're aware of that. Help us. Maybe prove something you guys say you don't.
Yeah.
It's kind of either on the classification level or.
Okay, so just to summarize the point, so the changes in the bylaw would not negate active discussion and decision-making around the new CNC plan, or without approval. So remember last year, right? We were the ones that stood up at the town meeting and said, we stand by this CNC plan, right? So are we doing that?
I'm part of the plan separately.
The plan is separate, okay.
That's something that I do think we would have some, or should have some. That's a big change. It's done frequently. And that makes more sense. I think these one-off jobs that are replacement positions or things like that, they've already been approved as part of the process.
I think probably, in my opinion, what we need to do, and not gonna do it tonight, but we need to come up probably with a draft of what we're, incorporating all these thoughts in terms of a new personnel file.
Yeah.
And once we get something right that we can look at and so forth, I think some of the, whether it's wordsmithing, maybe it's conceptualized, that will get us down to a better place than we are right now. Just what's taken place in my mind is we've introduced a new concept, which is we want to move as many of the parts of the current bylaw into PPPs that we can. We want to ensure that if there's a new position that we want to get out of the approval business, and the end result is what Joe's talking about, which is focusing on what we can add value added, which is what are ideas we have, or what are concerns we have about positions or filling or whatever. Does that capture?
I think this sounds great, to be honest, but I also would like to hear from those who come and sit with us on board. What is this the right direction? Mark, you're also, with the select board. I mean, what do you three think of this discussion?
Well, I'd be happy to weigh in. I'm not sure who else is in the room because I can only see the four of you, but
it's Carrie and
Kimberly.
and that's it, Mark. And we don't have anyone else on Zoom, right?
We
Yeah.
didn't.
and then I'll be happy to give my thoughts. Or I can go.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can't hear anybody talking. Are you guys saying something?
No, no one's saying something.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh,
Yeah, it's fine. I just thought I thought maybe Carrie was going to speak, but what you guys have just been discussing is section 5 of the personnel bylaw, basically. And that's in your packet on pages 60 and 61, just in case anybody's trying to follow along. But I think that one of the things that's always struck me, and somebody will correct me if this is run afoul of state law, is that the most useless part of this process is having town meeting actually approve the classifications that are done. Because, I mean, to the extent that the personnel board at least understands what they're doing, we're asking town meeting participants to approve these classification actions that have taken place, throughout the whole year retroactively and really without discussion almost. And so that, is specifically stated in the bylaw in section 5.1 that I'm sorry, 5.3, that these positions will go to town meeting, and the town meeting will have to approve that. And so I would try to eliminate that for sure. I think that you're on the right discussion point as to what extent should new positions or reclassifications come to the personnel board, and is that an approval, or is that a review, or for an awareness? But I think that, let's start with simplifying town meeting and the things that truly are no value into the process, and then after that. And I think also the periodic review of the classification plan, which is the basis for all of this, makes sense to keep. But does that need to be spelled out in the bylaw, or does it make sense to put that somewhere else as well? So those are my thoughts for simplification. And again, I've long maintained that holidays and stuff should refer more generally, as I think I heard Kimberly mentioning, to some policy, and maybe the policy is approved by the personnel board. So some of the powers that town meeting may have may more rightly rest with the personnel board. Some of the things that the personnel board may be required to do right now might be more efficiently handled with staff. And so I'd encourage you to sort of look at it section by section and try and think that way. At some point, obviously, we will have to have an understanding of what any state law that may restrict our ability to take that out would be.
Mark, I guess the other thing that I'm remembering that I was wanting to get to tonight is, before we do this and get it into an article for the warrant, we have to have the approval of the select board too, right? So we would have to present to the select board at some point. Is that right?
The board will need to agree with you on as your charge. The bylaws are typically developed by committees that are empowered to do that. For example, the planning board does the zoning bylaws, and they don't actually ask the select board. Eventually will weigh in on whether or not we support a given article or not, but we don't really approve that language. That's left to the subject matter experts on the given board to do that sort of thing.
Okay, great. That's less time constraint then, right?
So I have always typically thought of the town meeting process as a ratification process. So during this group is charged or given the responsibility to do certain things throughout the year, and you do those, and then you package all of those up, bring them to town meeting, and I look at it as a ratification. In other communities I've worked in, it's used that word. Here we don't use ratification, and that may be something that you want to look at, that to specify that the act that town meeting is taking is to ratify, and it's a checks and balances system. I think you might see some pushback if you try to take that power away from town meeting. It might not be enough to carry a vote, but it may be too soon to try to do something like that. I think the overall intent is to make sure that you have meaningful work, and the issue with, and that you have the opportunity to add value. So the issue with the classification is, unless you are going to be working with it on a regular basis, it's just all you're ever going to do is rubber stamp, so to speak, because you don't have the information to be able to contribute. So that's probably not a great value add. And there are so many other things where you could be helpful. I don't know. I know you're all sensitive to slowing down things because you've heard that, or at least those of you who have been on for a couple of years, you've heard that. I don't think, nothing moves fast for us. And I don't I don't think you need to be as sensitive to that as some of you may be feeling. The issue from my perspective is having a regular meeting. You know, having a regular monthly meeting. Most boards and committees, you know that they meet on the second Tuesday. And I think that is enough, knowing that there is a regular monthly meeting, and when there is activity that has to come to this board, an employee knows that at October's meeting, my item is coming, that's enough. What wasn't happening was a regular meeting, and there was all of this angst because, you know, we kept hearing, trying to get a meeting together, but we don't have a quorum of the personnel board. That's what was causing the problem. Not that it might take 3 weeks or 4 weeks for something to happen. So I would just throw that out. And you're meeting regularly now.
Yeah.
And you're getting a lot of work done. And that's helpful, and people are noticing.
So one thing we've talked about too in terms of responding to that last point is I looked today just by chance that on the DEI Commission's website, and they have a sheet that says all their meetings for the year. It's not just every Tuesday or something. It's this day, here's where, here's the link. We could do that, right? And make it really obvious that it's the second Wednesday night at 5:15. Yeah.
That's a good suggestion.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
All right. But that's encouraging to hear that, Carrie. So thank you. Yeah. All right. I think that's a real plus for this conversation. Is there, Mark, I didn't get your second point though. You mentioned simplify the role of town meeting also. No, that wasn't.
My second point pertaining to the bylaw was some of the specific things that are in there, and I question whether they need to be there. For example, section 9, which is the hours of work, has always struck me as being not very useful because we have many different work schedules, and so it defines this full-time work week as a certain number of hours. Actually, it's a choice between 37.5 or 40. And, it just seems to me that it's not particularly helpful to have that in a bylaw, which then, needs all the overhead of updating that bylaws take, when maybe it would be easier to point to something else that is maybe directly within the purview of the personnel board to update, or the town manager to propose and the personnel board to agree with. Again, I'm just looking for ways to sort of simplify some of what's there so that it's a little more clear and a little more user friendly.
So, and then Carrie, you said you didn't think we should try to take things away from town meeting. Was that specifically where you were worried the town meeting would get unhappy with that, or where?
Well, yes, that kind of thing, and I just, it just may be too soon for something like that, since there was, and I know the personnel study task force work now is getting old.
Yeah,
it's been
2 years.
It's been a while,
Yeah.
but I think it's not a heavy lift to put that together. There's no big discussion at town meeting. I think
Right.
I wouldn't touch that, other than perhaps mentioning ratification, making it clear that it's ratification, because maybe even before you were on the board, and Mark will remember this, that it seemed like we were communicating to people that certain actions, that while they were approved by the personnel board, they weren't official until they went to town meeting. Mark, I don't know if you remember that, but that's, we were hiring people, and they were left wondering, well, I gotta wait till town meeting to know if I'm really gonna stay in this position, and that's certainly not the intent of the mechanism.
So I came at the tail end of all that, so I'm not sure that I really understand, but it sounds like to me, if we were to make real change along this lines for an article to bring about the bylaw to the town meeting, and your worry is that town meeting would say, wait a minute, you're taking away all these oversight roles that we have as individuals over the town and how that's spending money, et cetera, so we're not comfortable with that. But it sounds like to me what we really need to do is go back to the task force and sit down with them and before it gets to an article and say, we're listening to you guys. Here's what we're removing. How are you doing with that? Because it sounds like that's where, if I understand correctly, it sounds like a lot of the people that were unhappy with the change, which the change was rather radical, right? Do away with the personnel board is what was
Right,
brought
that-
to town meeting, right? So that's not what we're proposing, right? So it wouldn't be the town meeting would never see anything. There wouldn't be a personnel board, but we are going to change things so that we're actually more helpful to the town strategically. Maybe we just have to do that kind of pre-work to make sure that the people that were hot the last time aren't gonna worry and understand where things are going. Do you think that would work? Or do you think there are more people in town that would get up in arms over ratify? It sounds pretty normal to me. I don't know.
I don't, Mark, I don't know if you have any thoughts, you might be plugged in better.
Hmm.
I'm all about, picking your battles and I don't know that I would do anything with this one right now.
I think that as long as there's a before and after process that handles a particular issue in a logical way, you will be fine. I think that the real kickback for the previous proposal was it was basically remove the law altogether and say there's this advisory board that will be consulted as the need arises, was essentially what that article purported to do, which was clearly a step too far. But if somebody were to go into section 12, for example, and instead of saying the holidays are these 12 days observed so and so, the sections now said there is a personnel policy that will be maintained that lists the holidays as proposed by the federal government and the state of Massachusetts, and the personnel board will approve that holiday list in conjunction with the town manager instead of actually listing all the days. I think that would make more sense to people who can remember that we end up spending 20 minutes adding Martin Luther King Day to the holiday schedule a year after it had been a federal holiday, because that's when it happened to hit for town meeting. And, employees had concerns about whether they were going to get this federal holiday off. And if somebody invents a new federal holiday, we would go through the same thing, when it'd be much more efficient to be able to have that come up at the next monthly scheduled personnel board meeting, an approval of a new holiday happens, and we don't really need that at town meeting. That's the kind of example I'm thinking of. So as long as, again, old process, town meeting had to do it, new process, there's a list that's maintained by in a personnel policy that the personnel board approves, and that's good enough. I mean, nobody's going to argue against Martin Luther King Day, I don't think.
All right, thank you.
So it looks like, Kate, you have a lot of revisions to look at as the first drafter. Is that too much with your schedule, or
No, honestly, I already started it. I just didn't have time to really
engage with Pamela?
engage with
Yeah,
Pamela
okay.
and
Yeah.
you. I think I have some, ideas in a first start. I think I can manage that by next meeting.
All right.
And I'm happy,
Yeah,
I can send you what I have, you can send, and we can work together on it and come together with a draft.
And I'm certainly at your service. So if you want to have discussion about it or if you want participation.
It's just back
A
to
lot of this
school.
stuff is already employee handbook stuff. that's in there.
Exactly,
You know, why it's in the body.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But
I
we
think
don't have an employee handbook, right?
we don't,
That's like half of this is an employee handbook.
Yeah, so we
Well-
could have one.
we could have.
Yeah.
But we
The
have
other
policies
half-
and procedures.
Yeah, the other half
Yeah.
is policies and features.
Okay.
So I think we have to think about it more globally.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So that we have all of the pieces identified. And we then know what's,
and the policies and procedures though don't go to town meeting. The only thing that goes to town meeting is bylaw. Right,
Right.
so if we say as a team that the work of the personnel board is the bylaw, the charge, a handbook is needed and review policies and procedures. Those are kind of the nuts and bolts of,
at a
The
top level, I would
foundation.
agree. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the other things about, how we can help with hiring, retention, compensation planning and all that. These foundational things aren't gonna be so heavy all the time, right? We're gonna do a great job this year and then next year we're gonna kick back and cupcakes at all our meetings.
Oh, really?
Well, if I'm not doing meeting minutes, I'm gonna have a lot of time for cupcake meetings, that's true.
So I think, we then have a plan for the next meeting, which is again, a iteration of, we're gonna, this will take a little bit of time. I mean, we're gonna,
Yeah.
let's see where we're, September. I don't know, in some ways, don't we have to be, for really serious about getting this into the next town meeting, don't we have to actually have an agreement on the personnel board, sometime November at the latest?
At the very latest, right? So that gives us 2 meetings that are official meetings. Is there a way, there is a way that we could share material, like you two do your thing and then we can share it, right? Across with the public meeting law and share, so we could see what they did before, have comments ready, not just the few days before, but a week or two.
You can share, but you can't comment back.
Okay,
I can't remember it.
all right, but we could feed our comments into one individual.
You could feed it
We could
into-
feed it into Kimberly, okay. All right,
That's, that'll be a good plan.
okay, so then you and I have some homework after you guys do your work.
When is our next meeting? So it's getting off
Second
topic,
Wednesday
but-
of,
Oh, it is the second one, okay.
yeah, it's always second Wednesday,
Alright.
so that means the 11th of October.
Okay. I didn't go further this September, my calendar, sorry. Anyway.
So,
They'll be up on the
I
site
made a
soon.
note, yeah, I made a note to put whatever the DEI commission has, mimic that on your side.
so let's move on to the, number 6, which is the discussion of the charge. And where we're at in the packet material was an update that Liz had put together. We've been sort of going back and forth on this for several months. All good time spent. But what do you feel still needs to be done before we consider voting to approve this to present to the select board? What are your thoughts?
There are a lot of typos, I apologize, I don't know how that. I missed that.
No worries.
Administration spelled incorrectly every time.
Thank you.
Where you get 55 mistakes a year.
Is that right?
Yeah.
She was
So-
good. It's them all up in this one thing.
Certain words I never can spell right.
Usually I do I don't know. So, I think we got out with, this is volume 5 or 6 now with the charge. I mean, thank you, Carrie. I didn't say
I
that.
like to say that too. She needs to go.
So. I mean, so one thing I really think that now, and I've been like, no, we have to do it all together, but now I'm thinking we need the bylaw before we can really final the charge. But, one thing I think we should have a good discussion about is I put this draft together in a structure that responded to the task force report. Right, and they wanted, well, I honestly, I can't have spelled this many words wrong, I don't know what happened. Dues and responsibility was really duties and responsibilities, right?
It's your computer, you probably need a new one.
Ah, it's that, it could be, that sounds exactly like my teenager. It's not my fault. Okay, so forget all the typos, this incredibly impressive number of typos, but is the format the right format for a charge? Right? I mean, this is where we were, when I arrived on the scene, the task force report was saying this, and then we used that structure to introduce the roles and responsibilities to the select board. And they approved that list. So I used those start duties and responsibilities, and then communication, which honestly, I did not spell that wrong. I don't know how this. Governance and human resources, employee relations. Am I in the wrong document? How did so many get? Anyway, all right. Are you guys seeing this too? I mean, like every other word is misspelled.
No,
I think it's your computer
I think it was-
Wow.
or the PDF sends off.
You know what? I downloaded the package so it wouldn't be a PDF, so I could see more. And I think it's converted badly. So, yes, and some it is my computer.
I wonder if this doesn't become part of the bylaw. Is that what you've been saying for like, there's a section, if we start carving out some of the CPC stuff or employee handbook stuff, whatever that is, that there just isn't a section in the bylaw that defines kind of the board charge.
Is it in the bylaw or is it in the handbook?
In the bylaw.
To me, the handbook is more for employees,
Yeah.
like what are their benefits and policies and procedures that affect their day-to-day work.
So the mission statement
This
is,
is more governance.
Yeah.
Town governance stuff,
okay,
I think.
Well, and don't forget that it would not be a mistake to have it both places. You could have what is portions in the charge could also find itself in the Bible.
and the mission statement could go on
In both.
it's on the website. I was just thinking like, what do we do? Here's what we do. It's just there on the website with and that's what the DEI commission does too. They have like 3 paragraphs. Well, they have 1 paragraph, then they say, what is diversity? What is DE equity? What is inclusion? And then they give all their meeting dates. So, yeah, okay, so we could use them in multiple ways.
So
Given, I understand. I think that's reasonable.
I mean, my sense here is that there's no right or wrong in terms of what the format should be. I could certainly see that the major heading, duties and responsibilities, which is pretty descriptive, is that we don't necessarily need a separate communication section, a separate governance section, a separate human resources and employee relations. You could wordsmith or capture the essence of what you have and include that in the duties and responsibilities. That's just an approach. I mean, it's not the right way or the wrong.
No, I agree with that. I think it's, I think when we were working through this, it was kind of we wanted to capture everything, but I think there should be we synthesize what the bylaw is, which I think, I've been kind of wanting to doing both concurrently at the same time, because the bylaw really maps out more in detail what our authority and our duties are, and this is really a synthesis of what that is. And I think you even refer to it as a way of communicating in an accessible way, so that a resident, an employee can come in and get a very brief summary of what we do, and then go to the bylaw too. So I agree.
Okay.
So does that then sound like,
This should be
Take it out.
condensed to a section of the bylaw.
Well, I mean,
Right.
and I agree. I think a lot of this should move here, and then we.
I don't know what you're pointing to.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is the bylaw. I have my bylaw right here. So a lot of the real detail here can move to the bylaw, and then we, provide sort of, I don't know, I keep using the word synthesis, but a summary.
Mhm.
Communication.
Yeah, exactly.
to-
I got stuck on that
Right,
word.
I think that the charge should clearly, we can set a target of no more than 2 pages,
Yeah.
and that, okay.
Just as a, practicality, once again, the bylaws approved by town meeting. And the charge is essentially an agreement between the personnel board and the select board about what the personnel board is doing. So you have more flexibility and can change the charge much more easily and more frequently than the bylaw. So, my thinking is put a few more things in the charge and let the bylaws stand, for eternity a little bit better, because then we don't have to go to town meeting to ask for modifications.
So the reverse of what I was just saying, so the details in the charge, and the bylaw is much more broadly worded and then point to our charge and or the policies and procedures.
Exactly, because the personnel board is one of the few boards of the town that's actually listed in the charter. So even, most of the boards in the town, if the select board decided for some reason that we didn't want to have it, we could just, make it disappear. But we can't do that with the personnel board, because the personnel board is in the town charter and sort of exists side by side with the select board. And that's why the charge is a slightly different, and it makes sense, and it's controlled by a bylaw. So, which is also different, something, the cable advisory task force, or, cable advisory committee, or even the climate action committee is simply created out of the ether by the select board, and, can be removed in that same way. So you have those responsibilities. So I think of those really, fundamental responsibilities as being the ones that should be in the bylaw and broadly described, and then how it operates. The bylaw today does contain what the membership of the personnel board is, which is, again, slightly unusual, but I'm fairly comfortable with that, because again, it sort of, if you think about it, it restricts or, inhibits the ability for somebody to, stuff the personnel board. We can think of certain institutions that we might like to add people to, but we don't.
So yeah, okay, so bylaw outlines the numbers of the personnel board and should stay. Do you guys agree with that too? Should
Yeah.
stay in bylaw. Yeah, that sounds, more institutional, right?
Right.
Okay. Not down to 1 page, but slim it down, the chart.
So Mark, can I just ask a quick question about, because you have clearly more experience working with boards and committees and charges versus bylaw. Is this how a lot of other, I know not all boards have a charge or administrative
Bylaw.
code. Well, no,
They
right,
don't have the
no, the
bylaw.
charge is what I'm talking about. And with a bylaw, do they have, more of the detail in the charge versus the bylaw? I'm just trying to get a sense of how other boards and committees are organized.
Many of the boards and committees only have a charge.
Okay.
The charge describes how, the membership and what they're there to do, and, when we might decide that they're done, if that's the case. That's so you have extra things which are meant to make the personnel board essentially more sticky in the organization. And so I agree with Bill. It doesn't matter if they're, something is in both places, as long as it's the same. But, if there were a conflict, the bylaw would be the more authoritative, because it's voted by town meeting as opposed to just a board.
You replicate, I think that was one of the criticisms, right? Is if we replicate bylaw and charge and then we change the charge, the bylaw stays unless we bring it again to town meeting, again, and that wasn't happening, which is, right? So,
Yeah, the bylaw was changed multiple times, but the charge hadn't been touched in
is that the way it
years
was?
and years and
think
years, right?
1985.
Yeah, so 1985, we're still working from a charge from 1985, whereas the bylaw's been updated.
And the charge then, it was called the administrative code.
Yeah.
So different different
I don't
terminology.
even recall looking at that in drafting this charge, but I'm sure I did.
Well,
You
it's
know,
on it, yeah.
yeah, I'm sure. It was just so long ago. This down.
All right,
To do it, but
let's
I think we have our marching orders,
do-
now, right?
I just want to make sure. Can
Yeah.
we-
Yeah.
I think on the personnel bylaw, and you're comfortable with.
Yeah,
the-
I'll go again at the chart.
Okay, all right.
Why don't I volunteer this? I'll work with Liz specifically on the charge because eventually that will have to come to the select board. And so there is a standard charge format that Shannon uses, but I think that it may need to be modified a little bit because this is the personnel board. So we can look at that to just format it in what the select board is used to seeing, but we can do that together.
Great,
Yeah, I
thank
would-
you.
I would advocate for making certain that we do something not terribly creative, but you know, if it's gonna be new, it'll be new. And it may be a
Yeah.
new standard for everybody else.
All right, so the push is that by next meeting, October 11, we are with final drafts. And then we really focus a lot of the attention on both the bylaw and the charge and see if we're all happy.
See, I don't think we're gonna be at a point on October 11th on the bylaw.
Well,
I
if
think
you guys
we'll
do
have-
it and we comment and give those comments to Kimberly, that's around again,
I
right?
would say
No?
a goal would be to have a final draft by November, by the November meeting. So October, we work together and we can funnel to Kimberly and that can come back out to us. But I think your comments can come to her, but then we need another meeting to really discuss it in October and then finalize in November. I mean, that's my recommendation.
I'm just sad that I'll be doing it again, but yes,
I know, I
I
know.
understand.
That makes sense.
That's bylaws. They take forever.
Okay.
All right, and Mark, you're okay that, I mean, because that's not saying, and then we'll go to select board, we're just coming with an article then, right? I guess on the side, we could show it to select board through you, but we're
Yeah.
not,
When we meeting with the select board where we actually also look at your charge, that would be a great time if there's a draft available of the new bylaw to also preview that. You know, those would be the two things that I would suggest we allocate some time for, just to, you know, get it out there. But the bylaw doesn't need to be approved by the select board.
but then we need to, could you get us on the agenda at the right time for that? Because if we're not approving until November, and we're the second week in November, can we go to the end of November, the week of Thanksgiving, to the select board, or when, I mean,
Sure.
what would that look like?
Tell you what meeting we'd be targeting. Let me just look at my schedule.
I'm kidding about Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna work on Thanksgiving.
Oh.
And Kimberly won't be with us anymore by then. Wow.
Be with you in spirit,
We might just call them anyway.
or virtually, you know.
There's a select board meeting scheduled for November 6th and one for November 20th. So those are the choices in November.
Have to be.
December 4.
Mark, Kimberly here, if we wanted this item to get on the 20th meeting, what's the deadline to have it submitted?
November 6th. So that about 2 weeks before that.
Okay, because we meet on the 15th and you meet 5 days later, right? So we'd be ratifying or deciding on the 15th of November and hoping, what about 2 weeks later, the December 4th?
Is that too?
Yeah, basically the date of one meeting is the deadline for the next meeting.
Okay.
But that would work for us, 'cause, you know,
Get
then,
it in. for-
yeah,
for town
because you know
meeting.
remember how it
Yeah.
was with all our presentations and so forth, it's like, we put a placeholder and then we'll move it, you know, so I think December, I recall it was mid-December, Mark, for the articles
Yeah,
draft.
the articles.
So I
Yeah.
think,
Articles are due for the warrant usually in July, January, and I can give you that date too if you want to know what it is. The warrant closes Wednesday, July 3rd at 4 p.m. So The due date for draft warrant articles is Friday, December 15th. If so sometime between December 15th and January 3rd, your article needs to be finalized.
All right, and so if you guys agree with it on the 4th, that gives us plenty of time, or if you disagree with it.
Right. And if you want to be an overachiever and put it in on day one, the warrant opens on December 2nd.
We're not gonna do that. We're not even gonna consider. But December 15th, I'm sorry, I'm taking notes badly here. December 15th was the
The warrant, no,
warrant.
December 15th is the due date for draft articles, but the actual warrant closure, which is, the midnight and you miss the boat, date is January 3rd at 4 p.m.
Okay, all right. So I think that's manageable, right?
Yeah.
We finished, we have those 2 dates. We don't try for November, so we all have a happy Thanksgiving. But then the week after, so we have to go in and do the select board.
Well, I think our secret weapon is gonna be Mark, because he'll be able to give us feedback
Yeah.
as to what he feels is, are we prepared to go before the select board or aren't we?
Mhm.
And we'll rely upon you, Mark, for your guidance and commentary on how, as we move ahead.
Thank you. That's my job.
Terrific. All right.
Okay. So, I think you've got any other items to come before, we don't have any, no public out there. Right, okay. So, I think we're ready for adjournment.
so moved.
Right.
Right? All
All
in
in
favor?
favor.
Liz?
Yes.
Kate?
Aye.
Joe?
Yeah.
And Bill?
We never get out of here before 7. So.
Thank you, Mark.
But very
Thank you, Mark.
helpful
Bye, Mark.
discussion. Thanks a lot. That
Okay,
really.
Mark, good to see you.
Good evening, everyone.